What's going on, guys? Welcome to Alignment First. Mike Anders here, and we are on a mission to build the fittest leaders and serve the executive athlete through integrity, courage, and ownership. And I've got the honor and pleasure of sitting down and chopping it up with the 10X unicorn, Daniel Knight, professional collaborator. You've made it your mission, and I think this is really profound insight on your part to create a business that is based around and upon strategic partnerships and collaboration. And beyond your many talents, this is the one that really speaks to me as a connector. You have taken that to the next level, not to be redundant, and no pun intended. And you're amazing at it. You know, I can't tell you how many rooms that I've been in this new version of business that you, quote unquote, just so happen to also be in. And that it's not a mystery, as I've come to know you both personally and professionally, that this is not only an area of genuine interest, but also a professional accelerant for you too. So let's go all the way back to the beginning, man. Where was the impetus for you? I know you've got, a long history of entrepreneurial roots, but where did it takes a tribe? Where did that notion come from, and when did it become concrete in your business strategy?
Yeah, well, as far as it taking a tribe, so there's this book called Who Not How, and it really talks about leveraging the right people, and that the right people, that when you're working together, it can create a far greater impact. And usually for us to achieve the things that we're focused on, there's so many different levers that we can pull, right? Mm-hmm. But when we identify the people who can really help us and help us get to where we're trying to go, that's what can really create the greatest impact. So okay, first off, I just want to say I appreciate you for having me on. And, it's been really awesome getting to know you and work with you and see everything that you're doing. And it really is just all about being aligned with the right people. And mm-hmm. So, Sebastian, mm-hmm. In 2022, I was really putting together the model for the community side of things for Unicorn Universe. And I started working with Sebastian, and he basically asked me, he's like, okay, you have this community of people. It's maybe not super formalized, but you have this opportunity to put together who you really want to be part of it. And so he asked me, he was like, imagine you're having a dinner, a nice fancy dinner. You can invite anybody you want, but all of your closest friends. How would you describe the people who have a seat at the table? And so I told him, went through all of these things, and then he's like, all right, cool. Then he asked me who would not have a seat at the table. Mm-hmm. It's such a simple exercise, but through that exercise, we were able to really identify the core values that, one, made up the unicorns in the community, and two, that I stood for, right? What are the values that I hold? And in doing that, so many things have come from it, from, collaborating on different events, multiple different, speaking engagements, partnerships that have been really significant for a lot of different people. And it's just really clear, and this is becoming less and less true, but having, a solid group of people around you mm-hmm. that really kind of help create the common goal is such a powerful thing. And the reason why I say it's becoming less true is because with AI and technology, I think it takes less manpower to achieve a lot of the things that we're focused on. Mm-hmm. But just like in Think and Grow Rich, having a mastermind of people contributing to your goals and your wisdom and your knowledge and, everything that you're focused on is just without a doubt the best way to get clear and brainstorm and get support and feedback on whatever it is that you're focused on. And so through that with Sebastian, we created a mastermind. It was all focused on creating strategic partnerships and how those can help people leverage relationships and grow and achieve a common goal together.
I love Think and Grow Rich, man. And, I think that the term mastermind, as it's become monetized in contemporary society, if you go back to the roots of that book, what he's really talking about is a carefully curated circle of people who not only complement each other, but also have given each other express permission to hold each other accountable and also be vulnerable with each other. And when you look at it from a principled standpoint, as you know, everything that we do at Next Level comes from a place of principle. When you look at it from a principled perspective, I'm curious how this looks for you, because I'm of the opinion that it's really important that you have not a lot, but you should have multiple mastermind circles where you can get valued insight and opinions and also express the same to others in those circles, whether it's professional, personal, people that fulfill or embody the ideal relationship, that you're on a mission to also do the same. For somebody that's doing it on such a grand level professionally, how does that principled approach line up?
Well, I think for anybody, it really comes down to what are you really most focused on that you're working to grow and achieve in your life. And then you can either hire a coach who will work with you directly, which I think is incredibly valuable. But there's also the opportunity to have a mastermind and get feedback from peers who are also going through similar things that you can learn from. And I think that it's really important to practice what you preach, right? So if you're in a mastermind and you're giving feedback, you should also be applying that feedback, right? Yeah. I mean, because so many people, they'll say one thing and then not do it. And it just doesn't make any sense. And so I think really getting clear on what the goal is that you're trying to achieve and find a mastermind that supports that. Because a coach is good, but a mastermind is it's a different level of accountability. And so, whether that's something around business, something around your body, your mindset, being part of your coaching calls, it very much is like a mastermind where people are able to share what they're going through, what they're struggling with, and contribute what they've done to handle those challenges before in the past. And I think that's super important. And not only that, but using your challenges as an opportunity for feedback and for yourself, right? So you can share the challenges you've gone through and give other people support, then also share the ones that you're going through. And other people that have been there can contribute and give you insights as to how they achieved the end result that you're looking to achieve.
Yeah, dude, that brings up such a great point. From the perspective of leadership, they talk about in a tactic of negotiation is giving some dirt so that you can get some dirt, right? And there's a lot of posturing in what I refer to as ignorant leadership, where for the sake of my position and status, I'm going to choose or opt away from being vulnerable or transparent to a certain degree, to protect my ego, my image, etc. How valuable do you feel it is to not, how do I want to put this? Put yourself out there and let people in their observation of you doing the work that you're holding them accountable towards as a leader of your 10x universe?
Yeah, so that's a super important question, and it can be tricky to maneuver because there's being vulnerable from a place of strength, but then there's being vulnerable from a place of weakness. And when you're in a leadership position, especially if you have people who are on your team on the call, or that are partners or contributors, whatever, you you do need to maintain a level of leadership in strength. So how can you frame your vulnerability as a strength, but still being authentic about it because of how you're approaching it? For one, you can start from, looking at it from a gain perspective. Like, what are you trying to gain out of it? Not looking at it like, oh, this is happening to me, I'm desperate for help. Desperation is a good way to get people to run from you.
Right.
And so approaching it from a position of, I'm not desperate, but I am looking for support around this area. This is kind of what I'm going through. This is what I'm dealing with. What has worked for you guys in the past? And honestly, just not being afraid of what people will think about you, but, being mindful about it, because anytime, unfortunately, anytime somebody comes at it from a point of desperation and they're begging, people don't like to give to beggars who they think are going to take that and do nothing with it, for one, or even slide further down into a negative position. So if you can make it clear what strength you're going to pull out of the information you receive, then I feel like it's much more likely to communicate. This person's not asking out of a place of desperation, but a place of strength, because they can see and they're actually going to take it and make something out of it.
Do you think that requires how do you get somebody who has, because what you're talking about, vulnerability from a place of strength, requires a certain sense of self-confidence, self-belief, a track record that this demonstration of vulnerability through strength works out to the good ultimately, even if it's uncomfortable in the moment. So it's a reinforced behavior for somebody who is inexperienced or doesn't have that reinforcement yet. What are some things that you've applied early on to get that body of work and create that reinforcement for yourself?
Yeah. So, great question. Couple things. One, I would say try to approach it from the mindset of no negativity allowed. Okay. So don't come at it complaining. Don't give way more information than is needed, but have a level of discernment. I think that's really the key to getting the feedback and, I don't like saying being looked at in a certain way, because then you're kind of thinking about, how are people looking at me? But having a level of discernment, like what needs to be said, what are you really facing right now that you can get support by giving the information that's needed. So many people, they think vulnerability means telling everything, telling the whole story, the backstory, what happened to me, why did this happen, who's to blame for this and that. Like, you start putting other people down, you start giving way more information than you need, and people are just like, I can't even help you. Right? But if you really communicate, like, this is what I need, this is the solution that I need, or, the opportunity for a solution, without getting into your whole life story and backstory, one, that's going to really help get the message communicated from a place of strength. And then I think most importantly, and this is for any mastermind group, anytime people are getting feedback around, a challenging situation, listen to it. Take the feedback.
Yeah.
As soon as you start getting defensive and you say, "Oh, I know that already. Oh, I've tried that." It's like you're probably not listening. And you don't need to defend yourself, and you don't have to get defensive about what people are saying to you when you can say thank you.
Oh, gratitude, huh? Okay.
Thank them for the input, because that's what it is. Take it, reflect on it, be honest with yourself, especially if you've received this feedback before and again and again and again. Like, you know that? What do you know? Why are you hearing that again? Right? Take a second, right? I mean, in any mastermind, anytime especially you're facing a challenging situation, it's the things that are triggering us that are probably the opportunity for deep reflection.
There's a word that kept coming up in your response, and I want to kind of really get laser focused on it. When you're receiving that feedback, when you're expressing that vulnerability through strength, one of the undertones of your message right there was get rid of the story. Like when you're soliciting feedback and you're expressing the lesson that you're learning in real time, right? Like the story becomes inconsequential. It muddies the water. Your emotionality about the circumstance clouds judgment in that particular instance, right? So if you can come to the table and say, this is what I'm working through, this is what I'm working on, this is what's showing up right now despite XYZ effort, and remove, and this isn't like a supreme execution of stoicism, but limit the colorful language and let the container, your circle of influence, your mastermind, dig and ask for those critical details. It's been my experience, like the best coaches I've ever had, when they ask me what's going on and I start into story, they're like, pause. So much of that is it surrounds the problem, but it's not the problem. Right?
Yeah.
So it's not a dismissal of your feelings, but it's cutting through the bullshit, collapsing time, and getting to the issue that actually needs to be resolved. When I say that, what shows up for you?
Yeah. So there's critical information, right? Context that is necessary to understand the situation and identify a solution. But then there are reasons and excuses and things that maybe you don't feel confident about the actions or inactions that you took. And I feel that most people, when that's the case, will over-explain the story out of fear of judgment because they want people to know why they're in this situation. When all you're doing is digging the hole further. And it's like really just what is the necessary information that needs to be given in order to work on and identify the problem and then come up with a solution collectively. Because like you said, they will dig in and ask questions that will help them gain contextual information that will help give advice. And you want that, because if you're not, I mean, how many times have you been on a mastermind call where people, they are just going on and on and on, and it's like, get to the point, like
Right.
ask your question,
Yeah.
state the opportunity for a solution. Like, you're just filling space and it's not helpful. And and there's a turning point where people will check out. And if you're just going on and on and on, people will literally, all right, and they give up. And then it's like, I can't even like give you my input because you just said like 3 years of information to not make your point.
Right. Yeah. So how do we get better? How do we get better at, dare I say, practicing healthier stoicism when addressing our issues?
I think, like you just said, is pause and take a second before speaking and really think through, what do people genuinely need to know in order to receive the support that I need? And, maybe flip it on its head. If somebody I knew was dealing with this, what would I need to know in order to give support? Keep it simple.
Yeah. Where's this come from for you? Where was your exposure that created, what was your first exposure to this mechanism of mastermind and strategic counsel and collaboration? What was your first exposure to this concept?
It's a good question.
Because correct me if I'm wrong, I'm interrupting your train of thought here, but you're not like a lifelong team sport guy, right? Where, and that I don't mean that derogatorily, but like I know in my football and military experience, like a lot of what we're talking about is just, it happens in the locker room. It happens in a foxhole in the middle of the night. It happens, as a part of the structure and culture of the organization, where if I'm having issues with my girl, I can turn to a buddy and be like, oh, dude, I solved that problem 2 relationships ago. Or if I'm having money issues, it's like, oh, hey, go talk to Lieutenant so-and-so. He's like solid with cash and investments, like it's all right there at your fingertips. And if I'm wrong, dude, there's just that's a piece of information I don't know about Daniel, but I don't know that to be your experience. So for you, where's that exposure come from?
Yeah, well, it definitely does. I mean, when I was at Hertz Car Sales, I started as a salesperson, then finance manager, then store manager. And it was in that leadership role that I was really, I was sending out a lot of communications, and a lot of them would be super wordy. And then when I moved up from there, then I was a regional manager. And I knew that I was just like dumping like words on people, like the whole region of, there was like 100 and I don't know, 120 people. And they all got it for the most part every day. So in that experience, I think that's where I really started to identify that I was being really wordy, and just started to kind of think through, what really needs to be said versus what can be removed. And so that was kind of where I identified it. So definitely super wordy. And then in Unicorn Universe, also in a leadership position where, I've got a community of people and I'm sending out communications there. And I'd really say it was probably between like being really focused on my LinkedIn and then also public speaking. Between the two of those, and I mean, I wrote a lot of copy on my LinkedIn, and I just started identifying like, okay, this doesn't need to be said. This doesn't need to be said. I'd go from like paragraphs of posts down to like, much shorter posts that still communicate what it needs to say. And then through public speaking, I mean, you're limited to a certain amount of time that you can speak typically. And in that, you're kind of forced. Like if you're given a 5-minute slot for a keynote speech, you're not going to fill it with backstory.
Right.
You're going to think ahead of time, I would hope. What are the key stories that communicate my message? What are the necessary stories that communicate my message? I'd probably say it was through public speaking, really, and working with a coach who was consistently giving me feedback on my speeches.
Yeah.
And there's a very simple structure to writing a keynote that before doing this, I was writing out my whole speech, memorizing it verbatim, and I'd nail it because I can do that. And I'd nail it in the exact amount of time that it took. But you knock me off of that, and I'm a little messed up. And of the verbatim, sentence after sentence being exactly right, word after word. You flip 2 words, and you can be in a completely different land with your speech. And you're going to go over on time too.
Has that happened to you before?
Not too bad. No, because I'm good at memorizing things. So, but there was one time at Toastmasters. It's funny, we were just talking about this. That I was watching the recording. I'm like, I definitely I got stuck in one spot. Like I forgot what the next word was, and it's like, missing a gear. Like it's not just gonna work. You're gonna slow down. So anyway, so then I learned the structure of, ditch the script, identify the key points that you want to make, all of the key points, and then what are the stories that you tell to support those points, and, shift it away from writing word for word scripts to rehearsing the stories, the points, and then knowing which stories support those points, and just allowing the space and recognizing that there's a lot of power in this space, and less is more. If you can communicate what you're trying to say, the points you're trying to make without going into extensive details that people don't need to know, that could be super impactful.
So this is the this is the part that I really feel like when it comes to people's advancement towards alignment, as we say in next level land, really hangs them up. They don't want to get the reps because they're worried about being exposed, right? Being seen as less than, when the only way to it is through it, and it's not to say that it's going to be perfect right off the bat. You're not over indexing in that direction, and at the same time, there's no guarantee there's going to be a catastrophic failure either. Chances are it's going to be somewhere in the lukewarm middle. Where like, damn, that didn't go the way I thought it would. You're going to launch and get crickets and no feedback, compared to this sucks, don't do it, you're awful. Like that part never happens.
No. It doesn't 100%. I mean, think about it. Everybody says like nobody ever sees the hard work, the dirty work. Nobody sees the failures to the success, right? They only see the highlight reel. Well, know why? Because they don't see it. Like social media doesn't push out the garbage. It's still there though. You can do, a webinar or a podcast or, a social media reel that totally flops. And guess what? Nobody sees it.
Right.
That is the result.
The algorithm doesn't support your failure.
Yeah, 100%.
Oh man. If you get zero wisdom from this conversation, that's it right there.
So be messy with it. Practice, right? I mean, that repetition is key. You know how many like hundreds and hundreds of selfie videos I've recorded that have helped me improve my public speaking? Mm-hmm. I mean, that was probably one of the most impactful exercises is create a 60-second video reel, because that's usually where things start dropping off, and say everything you need to in that 60 seconds. If you can't, you're saying too much.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And there's so much more there too.
Go for it, man. We got time. Let's go.
Here we are talking about, wordiness, right? Mm-hmm. And I feel like I'm giving these long.
Nah, man, they're jewels, brother. Keep it coming.
Yeah, I mean, it's repetition, right? Mm-hmm. Like when I first started creating video reels on social media, mm-hmm. I didn't even post them. I just recorded them and moved on and didn't post them. Yeah. And I gave this suggestion to somebody just the other day. They were like, I hate creating videos. Like, I feel like that's the main thing getting in my company, in the way of my company's success. I'm like, and you won't create the video. I'm like, I understand. I used to hate being on camera. I would hide from it. Totally get it. And how did I get rid of that fear? I just, like I said, I started recording videos of myself with no intention of posting it. And then I would just move on to the next one. I'd record it, move on to the next one. Eventually, you start to just feel like, oh, well, this doesn't even matter, right? Like it doesn't affect me. Or you'll watch one, and I highly encourage watching your replays. Yep. And you'll be like, oh, that was actually pretty good. I'm just going to post it. And then before you know it, you've posted hundreds of videos of yourself.
Yeah.
You go live on social media. Nobody's going to see it. And also nobody's going to care. And you might have one person show up. You know how many times I've done a webinar or a live stream or something where I'm like, I'm not ready for this. I don't want to do it. I should just cancel it and not do it. But I do it anyway.
Yep.
And one person shows up. And you just feel like, ugh, what a failure. What a flop. What a bust. And you get a message from them. This happened literally 2 days ago. Daniel, I jumped on your live and I was listening to it, and I was sitting down on the airplane, and this one lady asked me about it, and then this other guy jumped in. We had a whole 2-hour conversation because of your live around facing fears, and now they both want to do the fear challenge, and they were both super inspired by it, and they're going to reach out to you on social media. I'm like, that was super uncomfortable for me.
Yeah.
I had done something like that before. But it's just you never know who you're going to impact with these kinds of things.
I had an epiphany at my last week's Toastmasters meeting, which I'm so super excited that we're going to get to do that together.
Yeah.
I was like, the smallest rooms prepare you for the biggest stages.
Yeah.
And we talk about these desires, these major wins, the finish lines of life, as if we want to skip everything between now and their achievement, when the truth of the matter is, if you got it right now, you wouldn't be ready to handle it. And this happened. So I had this realization in Toastmasters, but it was in the immediate aftermath of doing a workshop for a group of 40-ish global executives at the Thunderbird School of Global Management. This is an opportunity that I have been nurturing and asking the universe for literally years. When I graduated that program in 2021, I was like, I want to be in front of the room doing the thing for these people, because what I do and how I do it would serve this container so well. And if I had been blessed with that opportunity any sooner than I actually got it, not to say it would have been good, I would have shown up for sure, but I wouldn't have been as prepared for what happened when I finished my first section, in which the professor who had been advocating for me alongside this pursuit since the beginning, he walks up to the program director, and I don't think that I was supposed to hear this, but I was within earshot as I was like shaking hands and people were telling me how impactful the workshop was and whatnot. And he was like, he goes to the program director and he's like, "See, I fucking told you he's good." And dude, I was like, in that moment, you have to sit back and think to yourself, like, like if you have any ounce of introspection whatsoever, like if I had gotten this any sooner, would I have gotten that response? I don't think so. And I think that, not getting things as soon or as easy as you think you want them is really an indicator as to whether or not you're ready for them.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think?
Yeah. Well, for one, I think highly of you, and you probably would have gotten a similar response, at some point beforehand, before when you did.
Mm-hmm.
But
thank you. I received that fully.
Yeah, 100%. But yeah, I mean, so there's this phrase that somebody said, I can't remember who it was, but like tying it back to speaking,
mm-hmm.
They'd say the more canned it is, the less canned it feels. Like,
oh yeah, okay.
Believe it or not,
yeah,
you have a speech that is so dialed in,
you
can't get thrown off from it, or right. You can't, or it goes on a completely different tangent, and you know how to jump back into it because you practiced it over and over and over again.
Right.
You know these stories so well. And not only that, but you're so well prepared that you know what to say with, a single word on a slide. You can hear a word from somebody in the audience and pull out a completely different story to resonate with that audience member. Literally, the more prepared you are, can you be too prepared for something?
No, I think you can be. If there's a dark side to over preparation, it's simply the exact opposite of what you just described, and being too married to the script.
Right. So, yeah. and at that point, like, maybe there hasn't been enough, practice around the variables of it.
Right.
And you can be over prepared, right? There is such thing as like just unnecessary preparation. Right. But when you're so well prepared, you've got, everything put in place, but like you said, you're not married to it going perfectly.
Yeah.
There's perfection and imperfection. And when you know how to handle the imperfections and the variables and things that come out of nowhere, like that's super impactful. And so yeah, I mean, I think that the work that you did in being prepared and knowing what you're going to say, but also knowing the knowledge around what you're saying. It's one thing to say a script. It's another thing to know what you're talking about. Right. Yeah. And when you know what you're talking about, you have a lot more flexibility. And so I feel that really contributes to getting the type of response. Doing reps to speak on social media, on lives, in a workshop, in a webinar, at an event. I take any opportunity I get when somebody gives me the mic, I
Mhm.
take it, and I will go up and I will speak. I will sing. I'll do whatever, because
Yeah.
I'm just exercising that muscle of preparation.
Mhm.
Because guess what? Anytime somebody's like, "Hey, you want to speak here? You want to be on a podcast? You want to be on stage?" I'm ready, because I'm
Yeah.
always ready.
Mhm. Have you ever bombed?
No.
Really? I have.
I wouldn't say so, because I really think a huge part of it is just not worrying about what people think, but also
Mhm.
just being ready for it, right? Like,
Yeah.
prepared.
So let me back up then, because that is a really positive frame on an objective circumstance in which the audience did not respond with to the desired intent of your talk. Has
Well,
that ever happened to you?
that's a completely different question. I'm out of here. Well, okay, so here's the deal, right? When it comes to, all right, so Russell Brunson talks about one of his first big speeches where he was doing this whole pitch on stage, and he watched this other guy clean up, just totally clean up. Like, this dude gave his speech, there was a table rush to the back of the room. They were signing up like 100 people, like, $100,000, $200,000 in sales, right? And he talks about, and if you watch Russell Brunson in the early days, it's brutal, man. His speeches are terrible. Yeah, I'm saying that, Russell.
Yeah.
And he knows it, but he put in the work and he put in the reps. And so what he says, and I mean, you ask any speaker about whether they felt like it was a good speech or not. If you're just speaking to inspire, great. If you're speaking and you have an offer and you don't convert sales, it doesn't matter what, Mary or Bob or Joe come up to you after your speech and say to you that, "Oh, it was so inspiring. Your speech was so good. It was so amazing." Like, well, you didn't buy anything. Nobody bought anything, right? So, like, at the end of the day, if it comes down to the goal, right? If you're trying to speak to inspire, that's quite honestly easy. Tell a story about what you learned and what you did from that experience. If you're trying to speak to convert sales, look at the numbers. If you didn't generate sales, improve.
Right.
Try again, right? Watch the replay and learn from it. Learn from the greats, right? Russell Brunson, he went and did a webinar every single week for, I think it was like 12 weeks before he got a single sale. And then like a year doing the exact same webinar, just refining this, refining that, figuring out what the messaging was that can actually convert the sale. So have I given speeches where I totally bombed and didn't generate a sale? Absolutely. Are you kidding me? And because that was the intention, right? So, if the intention was just to inspire, and did I, deliver a good message? Yeah, I always deliver a good message. And I know how to have fun with it, even when there's one person. I do it when there's 0 people on.
Yeah. Dude, talk about the importance of, I think, I'm genuinely curious in your opinion here, but I think those are the most important reps. Those are the ones that nobody's ever going to know about. And when you're talking about, your higher power, the universe is like in those moments listening to see how committed you are to the thing.
Yeah.
And if nobody shows up, you just pack up and go home. If one person shows up and you deliver half-assedly, right?
Right.
The cohorts of international business leaders are never going to show up because the universe will not conspire in your favor. And if it does, it will be to show you how unprepared you are because you skipped the reps.
Mm-hmm.
What are your thoughts there?
I totally agree that it's still a rep. It's practice at that point. Hey, it could even become content. And, you know, if you're doing your presentation, how it's most commonly recommended, like you recap everything at the end.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of the time, like this build up to, if we're talking about a pitch or an offer or whatever, that's so much time. But that last moment in your
Mm-hmm.
speech is usually what people walk away with. So what do you do if you, well, so this is the opportunity,
Mm-hmm.
is that let's say you had a 90-minute presentation. You're like, man, I really got to do 90 minutes to a blank wall, to myself. I'm looking at myself. There are no names in the chat. There's no engagement. I have nobody cheering for me, clapping or laughing at my jokes. Laugh at your own jokes. You can clap for yourself. And if in the last 10 minutes, somebody walks through the door and you let them in and they get to hear your offer, they might actually buy it. You get to practice the offer.
Mm-hmm.
Having that repetition, like that's really what creates the results, the end results, the longer term growth. And also like who are you doing it for?
Mm-hmm.
Are you just doing this presentation so you can generate some sales today? And if you do, great. Is that the end result? No.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're going to be doing it again, and chances are you are, because you're doing it in the first place, then go through it, do the motions, do the reps, get the practice.
Mm-hmm.
Because, man, I would rather do a presentation to 0 people and bomb that than do it to 1 person and bomb that because I had never done it to 0.
Right. Yeah. Mm-hmm. What is the value of recording yourself?
Ooh, I love that question. So when I first started DJing, I made it a habit to hit record every time, even if I was just messing around.
Mm-hmm.
Because 1, it removes the recording fear. People get all weird and squirrely. They're like, oh, you're recording this? Like, that better be perfect. Like, no, be yourself. So it gets rid of that because it's just red light versus no light, like whatever. It's just and then the other part is some of the best, like the gold is uncovered in the moments that people weren't recording.
Yeah.
So just record it. Just record it.
Yeah.
Right? Make it so that it's so meaningless that it's recording, but that it's such a habit that you capture all of it. Because otherwise you're going to miss out on the gold.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I can't tell you how many times, I've been engaged with conversations with you, where I'm like, man, I wish we recorded that. Like that was good. I can't remember exactly what I just said, but I know that shit landed,
Probably not many conversations. I'm the first person to be like, hey, can we record this? Hey, I'm going to record this. Hey, I'm recording this. Sometimes I do it without telling people, but I'm not going to use it against them. But I made that one of the, let's see if I can show this. This will probably open up other parts of the conversation. That little button right there. That's
buddy. Yep.
For recording. And
is that on the bottom now? I just updated my phone and I'm like still getting used to like stuff that was on the top. Now it's on the bottom.
Well, I added it there.
Sweet. Okay.
You can choose your hot buttons, but all I got to do is just boop and it's recording.
For those of you who don't know, Daniel is exponentially more tech savvy than I am. So like, that's probably like, yeah, you can do that. I'm over here like, you can do that.
And if you want to learn more, you can sign up for my masterclass on how to customize your iPhone on screen.
No, but seriously, man, like the going back and watching yourself. That I'll tell you what, man. If there was an unintended consequence of coming back to podcasting, I would say that's it. Is I get to expose myself to myself. At this point, a very concentrated dose at a high frequency, and being able to manipulate language, get a point across, carry a conversation. Those are all things that if you go back and watch, not even the very first episode of Progress Always in this phase of my career, but go all the way back to the first episode of Feed Me, Fuel Me back in 2016. And you will see quite the evolution. And it's one of those things that if you get far enough along, you appreciate the dirty stuff, the stuff that didn't look so glamorous, the stuff that was like, quite frankly, ugly. It's like, and you get to a point where the callus is thick enough that it truly becomes humorous as opposed to humiliating.
Mm-hmm.
And that becomes part of your arsenal of stories, as you've continually alluded to in this conversation. Like, if I want to make this point, I'm not just going to give you the logical facts and bullet points, but I was just listening to Chris Williamson, Modern Wisdom, his podcast, and he had Bugsy Malone, who's a British rapper, on, and he was talking about how, we learn better and absorb information more readily through story than through facts. And not that you have to be an incredible storyteller, but have a story that illustrates the point that you're trying to make. And if you become great at doing that, awesome. But at the very least, if you can make it your conscious default, your ability to communicate and people to receive the intended message increases tenfold. 10x, sir.
Absolutely. When I first started public speaking coaching, like receiving it, that was one of the most important things that they helped us understand. And they would take us through this exercise where they would just ask you to tell a story. That's one of the reasons why I love Toastmasters. Actually, it wasn't in Toastmasters. It was at one of these speaker masterminds that I went to, where they would put a word up on the screen, and it just turned into an oven mitt right there. A word up on the screen, and you just get up there and give a speech. And the best thing that you could do is pick a story that resonates with the word and finish it off with a point. Even if it's like completely unrelated, people will still resonate with it.
Yeah. What do you think? I've had people tell me this, because I've had a lot of diversity of experience in my life. I like to describe it as living a big life. I've done a lot of cool things. I've done a lot of things that are unusual and uncommon compared to the field. And because of those experiences, I have an arsenal of stories. And because they're different, they're interesting. However, if that's not your lived experience, or you don't come locked and loaded with a similar arsenal, how do you get beyond the comparison, the imposter syndrome of, to your point, you go into, you come behind that guy or girl that killed it from stage, and you got to follow behind that, right? What are some of the things that Daniel does to stay within yourself, stay in alignment, and deliver in an authentic way that is courageously within your integrity.
Yeah, so I feel like there's a couple things in that. One, comparison is the thief of joy.
Mm-hmm.
So be yourself and have fun with it and speak from the heart. Just because one person grew up on the streets and, had an abusive family and lost everything, and maybe he didn't go through that. There are also people who also didn't go through that. Mm-hmm. So who are you speaking to? And speak to that person. Mm-hmm. You don't need to help everybody. The best speakers aren't. They're speaking to a very specific person, mm-hmm. and communicating what they learned from their experiences through stories. Yep. And we all have stories. We're here. There have been things. Think of, if you need a funny story, think of the funny things that have happened in your life. Mm-hmm. If you're trying to explain where you're at or how you got somewhere, we should all have an origin story that mm-hmm. we can speak, because we all have an origin story. And that person who's speaking to the individual who had a very challenging childhood isn't speaking to the people who didn't. Mm-hmm. They're not resonating with that story. And so this story of, oh, I'm not as good as them, you're just different. Mm-hmm. It's just a different experience. All they did was honed in on their story, mm-hmm. and communicated it to communicate their point with the experiences that they had. Mm-hmm. That's all we need to do, is identify the stories that were impactful for us for whatever reason it is. What are you passionate about and why? There's a story behind that. And so going at it from the mindset of, oh man, I didn't lose my leg. How could I possibly communicate a story like that? Mm-hmm. That's not your story. Yeah. Why are you even comparing?
That's why you can't communicate like that, because that's not your story.
Right. 100%. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so, one thing we haven't really touched on is the future self work and mindset. And mm-hmm. so, before you go up on stage, if you're worrying about something like that, think to your future self. Who were you going on a stage that makes your future self proud? That they can look back to this moment in time and be like, man, you nailed it. Even though mm-hmm. this person went before you who had this crazy story that, people were crying in the audience, you went up there with life and energy. You had people laughing who were in tears 5 seconds ago. Right. And because if that's your goal, if that's the purpose of your speech, and we're talking a lot about speaking, but mm-hmm. really with anything, being your authentic self, but that makes your future self proud. I like to give myself future self high fives, right? Something that your future self is proud of. That's what's really important.
Yeah. Well, let's go there, because you have your future self. We talk about your best self, and both are used as a tool and a mechanism to bridge the gap and create pattern disruption and behavior shift and replace limiting beliefs with empowering ones. When did you become exposed, or how did you become exposed with that concept of your future self as you use it in the unicorn universe?
So about a year and a couple months ago, I read this book called Be Your Future Self Now. I was walking into the grocery store and I was playing it through my headphones, and it just really struck me that I was not actively living the way my future self would be. And if I thought about the ideal version of my future self, what decisions would he be making today? Who would he be being? And what decisions would he not be making? What are things that I'm doing in that moment that don't align with the best version of my future self? So I found myself putting things back on the shelves. I was like, well, he wouldn't be getting this. He wouldn't be getting that. Like, I walked out with probably a bag of broccoli. Like,
The bare necessities, baby.
You know what? I didn't need any of this. My future self wouldn't buy any of this.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of really where it started. And in that book, written by Dr. Benjamin Hardy, easily one of my favorite authors.
Yeah.
He talks about how Mr. Beast made a YouTube video where he was speaking from his future self, as if this had all already happened, and saying, all right, he picked like a day 6 months into the future. And he said, so it's October 24th right now. So he was basically like, all right, it's April 24th. I'm now at 1 million subscribers on my YouTube channel. I'm generating, $1 million from, that's probably bad math, from my YouTube channel or my businesses, right?
Mm-hmm.
All these different things that he was really focused on creating for himself, but he spoke it in an affirmative way that it had already happened. And I mean, he took it as far as now uploading that video to YouTube, scheduling it to go out, and then he was committed to it. He recorded a bunch of other videos too. And I heard that and I was like, oh, hell yeah. So I paused the book and I went and I got on my computer and I recorded a video to myself from my future self. And then every day, or not every day, but every month on a Saturday, I've moved the Saturday around, but I have what I call Future Self Saturday. And I'll rewatch that video or I'll listen to, a transcription of whatever it was that I was speaking. I also have a document that I write down all of the things that I'm achieving as my future self to my current self. And I just review it all and then go deep into my vision and my goals and the things that I'm really excited about. And then update that document. Long-winded answer, but
no, man, absolutely beautiful and supremely powerful, man. I love everything about that. Thank you for sharing that, because I feel like when people are 2 weeks into that practice, that's when they're almost ashamed to even share that they're doing it, because there's no confirmation that it's yielding any fruit of any kind, but that's so far from the point, again, like it really comes down to getting the reps. And I'm really happy that you shared all of that for anybody that is in the beginning or starting from scratch. I mean, fuck, dude, that's how you and I came into each other's orbit, is because I was starting from scratch, and to be here now and to see the growth that you've also attained, it all comes down to staying in the game and getting the reps. And that being said, brother, where can everybody come find you, lean into you, learn from you, and connect with you?
Yeah, 100%. Well, so I'd say probably the easiest way is just finding me on LinkedIn. I think my username is 10x unicorn. So I don't know the exact URL for that, but
we'll get it in the show notes.
Yeah, you can always search Daniel Knight on LinkedIn. I'm the one with the unicorn emoji, and yeah, I'd say that's the best place. I also can I offer my 10x unicorn strategy.
Come on with it, baby.
Because these are a lot of fun. And I just had one with somebody earlier today that he was like, man, that is like super powerful thinking. But anyway, if you can book a call with me, 10x unicorn strategy session, where we'll align with your 10x future self at 10xunicorn.win/strategy. Super simple. And you can just hijack my calendar with that. And I love those. I love those strategy sessions. It's a way for people to think bigger without doing more, but identifying the path that helps them achieve the ultimate goal that they're focused on, and get rid of all of the other stuff, all of the noise, and get super clear on, you know, if this is what I achieved, my future self would be stoked that it happened.
Hell yeah. Dude, I'm so grateful. Thank you for making the time and bestowing my audience with your wisdom. It is so enlightening. And I love it when my guests come on and they're so authentically vulnerable and transparent about their journey. And that was 100% achieved today, man. I'm thankful for you, brother.
Awesome. Thank you. I'm really grateful as well.
For sure. For everybody out there listening, make sure you like and subscribe to Alignment First on Spotify, and reach out to Daniel for all things 10X, because there's a future version of yourself out there in the universe waiting to meet you. And Daniel can help you collapse time and bridge that gap. Other than that, join us every week on Tuesdays for our alignment call, where Joanna and I get together and we connect on all things mindset, training, nutrition, recovery, and hydration, and how to integrate those 5 pillars into your lifestyle with as little friction as possible. And until next time, guys, alignment first.